Hello, everyone. This is Betska, the Guru Coach, together with Raj Vashisht, Delhi, India, Vancouver Island, Canada, and we welcome you to Mindful Leadership Beyond Borders podcast. And our guest this morning is a very accomplished lady. I'm so excited about this particular interview. Let me introduce you to her. Her name is Dr. Misty L. Wilkie. She's a PhD, RN, FAAN, is an enrolled citizen of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa and Métis descendant. Dr. Wilkie is a clinical professor and inaugural director of the Center for Indigenous People, Health, and Nursing at the University of Minnesota School of Nursing, where she also serves as director and mentor for the Pathway to Doctoral Education for American Indian, Alaska Native, AI/AN nurses. And under her leadership, the school enrolled 20 AI/AN Doctor of Nursing practice students, the largest cohort at a single university. I'm sure there's a story in there somewhere, Misty, right? Yeah. Wow. Okay. Prior to her appointment at the UMNSON, Dr. Wilkie was a professor at the Bemidji State University. During her tenure at BSU in 2017, she was the first in Minnesota to receive an HRSA Nursing Workforce Diversity Grant and was the founder director of, wait for this, let me see if I can get this, Nigana Weni Mana Neg. How did I do?
Good. Very good.
Awesome. Yes. I had to look it up. I had to practice my pronunciation. And this is Ojibwamoan for we take care of them. How lovely. What a nice name. And she secured $4.2 million in federal funding to recruit, retain, graduate, and license American Indian / Alaska Native Indigenous baccalaureate prepared nurses. So you can see that she is a nationally recognized leader in health equity. She has contributed extensively to national initiatives. So welcome, Misty. Such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you're welcome. So tell us about yourself and your childhood, and somehow that must have led to all of your accomplishments. So I'm curious about how this all happened.
Yes. First, I'd like to introduce myself in my native language.
Okay.
Buju and Dinaway Maganadog, Misty Wilkie and Dijnakas, Makwa and Dudam, Mikanakwaju and Dunjaba. My name is Misty Wilkie. I'm a citizen of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa. I am also a descendant of the Métis in Canada. My clan is Bear, and I'm really, excuse me, happy to be here with you today. So I think I've had a fairly unique childhood. My dad was a law enforcement officer for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, so we moved around quite a bit. I've heard uh, colleagues talk about being an army brat, or they've had parents in the armed forces, which with um, promotions, etc., you move around quite a bit, or you get deployed somewhere else, and it moves the family. Well, the same thing happens with those that are employed for Bureau and Indian, excuse me, Bureau of Indian Affairs law enforcement. So um, I started out being born in Virginia, Minnesota. My dad worked for the Boys Fort Reservation as his one of his first positions as a police officer. And then shortly thereafter, we moved back to our home reservation in Belcourt, North Dakota. And then he got a position on the Spirit Lake Reservation in North Dakota. This was the longest period of time that I lived in one place up until where I live right now, which is kind of crazy. So we lived on the Spirit Lake Reservation from my first grade year to halfway through my seventh grade year. And then my dad got a promotion and on the Standing Rock Reservation on the North and South Dakota border. And we thought we would get a house. We ended up moving into a hotel for a short period of time in Mobridge, South Dakota. And my brother and I rode with some friends of my dad's to school every day from Mobridge, South Dakota to Fort Yates, North Dakota. And I don't recall how long the drive was. Well, with housing issues, we ended up getting a house in Mobridge. So my fourth quarter of seventh grade year, I went to Mobridge, South Dakota. So I went to three different schools my seventh grade year. And
Oh, yeah.
I am quite a shy, introverted person, which I know most people don't believe because of the positions that I'm in, but the personal side of me is quite shy and very introverted. So this was a challenge, moving to all of these different schools. Well, then we found a different house near the Standing Rock Reservation, and I went to eighth grade in McLaughlin, South Dakota. And then my dad got another promotion, and we ended up moving to the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota, which is near the Nebraska border. So I went to school from ninth grade to 11th grade there. And then my dad received a request from the chairman of the Boys Fort Reservation, which is near where I was born, to return there to become their chief of police. And this was right before my senior year. So I really
Oh,
didn't want to move to a new place
mm,
where I didn't know anybody my senior year of high school. So I ended up moving in with an aunt and uncle on our home reservation where, at least I had my cousins to hang out with, and I had some built-in friends my senior year of high school. So I think, all of these experiences and places that I moved have really shaped who I am today. I've lived on some of the poorest reservations in the country and have
mm,
seen some um, not so good things.
mm,
But I've also seen some really beautiful things.
mm,
Our culture is alive and thriving, and so that's what I like to focus on is the positives and
mm,
how I can help our people and improve our health outcomes and hopefully encourage and inspire others to um, pursue their dreams. So during my senior year of high school, I ended up getting pregnant, and that really changed the course of my life as well. So um, that's me from 0 to 18 years old.
So basically, it's a story of having to move around a lot. Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
to navigate, different communities, different ideals, different
Hmm.
beliefs.
Yeah.
Um, and also, while my dad is a law enforcement officer, there were times where he was arresting people that I knew or their parents or their
Yeah.
family
Oh,
members. And,
yeah.
so that it adds a different dynamic to it as well.
Hmm. Absolutely. So in all those travels, going, wow, that must have been very difficult. What do you think was your main challenge as a young person?
Um, Looking back, um, I think navigating friendships and uh, well, I had really awesome friends, um, but we got into a bit of trouble at times. I was not a model kid. And so I really think that was the biggest challenge is not falling into a dark place, not
Uh,
heading down a path of addiction.
mm,
I've said in other spaces, it was really easy to get drugs and alcohol as a kid.
Right.
Um, or, easy access, I should say, not
Mm-hmm.
easy to get. Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, so I can see though, how people end up down those paths. There's a lot of hopelessness and despair. And, when you have easy access to drugs and alcohol, it's very easy to see how people fall and go down the wrong path. And so
Yeah.
I think for me that was one of my biggest challenges. And I think the way that I was able to prevent going down those paths is a strong, family support system.
Yes.
It's not too common for a child, a native child growing up on the reservation to have both a mom and a dad both be fully employed full time, and to have a safe home. It's a rarity, and I recognize the privilege I had in that, and how that helped get me to where I am today.
Well, that's what my next question was going to be. The traveling around, the challenges, easy access to drugs and alcohol and so on. Was that one of the reasons why you wanted to become a nurse and move into your
It
profession? Or?
It is not actually.
Ah,
So
interesting.
when I was growing up, I had a couple of ideas of what I might want to do. I think that's another important fact to bring up is, on reservations, at least when I was growing up, there weren't university and colleges coming to recruit at our schools. We didn't
Right.
have access to colleges and universities the way other schools in America do.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of even going to college isn't something that, is pushed or encouraged unless it's coming from home, which both of my parents, encouraged my siblings and
Yeah.
I to pursue higher education. So the things that I was considering as a child, as a career, was a speech pathologist, because I had a speech impediment when I was little. And, I recalled going to speech therapy and learning how to say my S's correctly. And so that was something that was interesting to me. And I also thought about being a social worker. I've
Mm.
always, had a big heart and have wanted to help people however I can. Um, I never really thought about nursing as a career, never thought about teaching as a career. But as I mentioned earlier, I got pregnant my senior year of high school. So when I had my son when I was 18, when he was 5 months old, he had a stroke. Um, and this
Oh my
was,
gosh.
yeah,
5 months
exactly.
old, he had a stroke?
Who knew a five
Oh,
month old could have a stroke? Like that's
wow.
something that the elderly people experience,
Yeah.
not infant babies. So we ended up spending 2 weeks at the University of Minnesota Children's Hospital in Minneapolis. Um, and during my time there, my parents came on the weekend when they could. They worked. So I spent, the Monday through Friday with Zachary um, in, this huge city. I had never lived anywhere except the reservation. Certainly
Mm.
never spent that many days in a big city by myself. Um, and it's a teaching hospital. So every day, there would be, I don't know, like 8 to 10 doctors, residents, interns, med students that would come into Zachary's room. They would gather around his crib, and there'd be a lot of whispering. And I'm, you know, the whole time sitting there by myself, kind of observing this, thinking, did I do something wrong? What
Yeah.
what did I do that caused this? Because it just
Mhm.
felt like there were a lot of secrets being shared as they're whispering.
Mm.
And,
Mm.
that's what's going on in my 18-year-old brain. And, the lead doctor would come over to me and he would talk to me what I perceived as a foreign language. He
Mm.
spoke in medical jargon. I had no idea what he was talking about, what, any of these words meant. And then they would leave. And
Oh.
I, am left to sit there still wondering what's going on. He
Mm.
had multiple diagnoses as they were trying to determine what was the cause of his right arm paralysis. And then his primary nurse would come in. Zachary's primary nurse would come in, and she was his nurse, I would say, 9 to 10 of those 14 days that we were there. And she would take the time to explain everything that was happening.
Ah, fabulous.
Um, like
Mm.
she interpreted what the doctor had said. She would tell me what the treatment plan was for the day, what we could
Mm.
expect.
Excellent.
She'd talk about the medicines and what they were doing. And like she was my saving grace. And
Mm.
I think for as young as I was pretty wise for my age. I recognized that this was something that I wanted to do for other people, that I wanted to be that voice, that advocate for families put in the same situation where, they didn't really know what was happening. And the nurse is the one um, to guide them and
Mm.
be be that person who can help them navigate the healthcare system. So her name is Ronnie. I had the great fortune of finding her on Facebook probably about 5 years ago. And I sent her a message and, I said, you probably don't remember me, but you took care of my son when he was 5 months old and you inspired me to become a nurse. And here are all of the things that I've accomplished, since that time. So I wanted her to know that her just doing her job, she was just
Mm.
doing her job, but that it transformed my life and it transformed Zachary's life. And
Mm.
it essentially has transformed hundreds of nurses that I've had the privilege of teaching over the past
Yeah.
20 plus years.
Wow.
I think it's important for people to know that, the things that they do and say and how they interact
Mm.
uh, can really be impactful, even though that's, not their intent.
Yeah. Well, I have tears in my eyes. I don't know if you can see, but that's a very lovely story. And how is Zachary today?
He is wonderful. So today he is 32. He Nobody would know that there was anything wrong with him as a baby. He is a
Mm.
lefty today. That's really the
Mm.
only thing that is a remnant of this stroke during
Mm-hmm.
those 2 weeks of full paralysis and then several months of
Partial. Yeah.
occupational therapy.
Mm.
He relied more on his left hand and became a lefty. But he is a teacher. He works at an alternative learning center, and yeah, he's wonderful.
Oh, that is really great. So I can see how your story has shaped your career, right? So
Yes.
then you must be a fabulous teacher, and a fabulous nurse, and a teacher, because you could see firsthand the impact that that nurse had on you as a young 18-year-old and on Zachary. Wow. So how did you end up in higher education and leadership positions? I mean, probably it was just a natural fit, but tell us more.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I never thought of being a teacher. I am shy. I do not like to speak in front of groups of people. Um, but well, maybe I'll tell a little more. So when I decided, I started out my education as a 2-year RN. So When Zachary got out of the hospital, there was a community college about 45 minutes away from where we lived. So I enrolled in that community college, and was accepted into their associate degree nursing program. And I completed that, graduated in 1997, and I worked for about a year at a rural hospital nearby, a very small rural hospital. We didn't deliver babies, we didn't do surgeries, we were connected to a nursing home. And I loved my job. I loved being a nurse. I loved connecting to patients and families, but I felt like I was capable of more. Um, and so I decided to go on for my bachelor degree, and enrolled in the RN to BS program at Bemidji State. So this was about a 2 hour commute from where I lived, and we had to be on campus every week. So I commuted weekly to Bemidji for what I thought was going to be a 2 year program. And, things ended up happening. I had to repeat a course. And so it took me 3 years to complete that program. But while I was enrolled at Bemidji State, I learned that there were only 12 American Indians with a PhD in nursing. And, this was in the late 90s. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, 12. Like, that's, you can almost count those on two hands. Like, I just could not believe the number was so few.
So low.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I set a goal for myself, to become one of the American Indian nurses to earn a PhD. And I think I was maybe 22, around there, 23. I don't know, somewhere around
Good
there.
for you. Good for
Yeah,
you.
so I
That's
I
huge.
thought, although I didn't know what I was getting into either, so and maybe that was for the best.
Well,
Because
listen, Misty, let's take a short pause because I want to hear the rest of the story. But we'll be right back, folks, with part two with Dr. Misty Wilkie.